Aloha, y'all. It has been an absolutely beautiful day here in the middle of the Pacific, so I figured I'd come speak to you for a minute about torture. I have to speak to you because I'm alone in my car. But I would like to speak with you. If you have the inclination, just holler at me in the comments. We can hook up sometime and talk about some shit. In any event, like I said, I'd like to talk about torture today. We have a former president and his administration who are guilty of institutionalizing torture. And we even have a Senate report on torture that said their techniques included but were not limited to waterboarding, water dousing, rectal rehydration, where they stick a tube up your ass and feed you or hydrate you, sleep deprivation, walling, where they grab you by the head and slam it into a wall, stress positions, and sensory deprivation, and on and on and on. Some more popular than ever. Waterboarding seemed to be a really popular one, and there was a little bit of an argument about whether it was actually torture. Well, you know, the United States is a signatory to both the Geneva Convention and the Conventions Against Torture and other inhumane or degrading treatment or punishment, and that's a UN thing. And, torture's pretty straightforward. It's when somebody inflicts severe mental or physical pain on you for whatever purpose. And we do that. And we do it in our own country, not just in Guantanamo and black sites across the world or in Iraq at Abu Ghraib. There are people all over our country who are sitting in solitary confinement for extended periods of time. This is sensory deprivation, and by all rational accounts, is a form of torture. Now, the Bush torture program hasn't really led to anyone going to jail except possibly John Kiriakou. But he went to jail for exposing the program. Those who instituted and applied the program are safe. In fact, George Bush, who was sitting in the position where the buck is supposed to stop, he retired with a couple $100,000 a year of our money. And we're spending over $1 million a year to protect his fucking war criminal ass. He is a war criminal, as is Dick Cheney. And when Obama came to power, a lot of naive American citizens thought he might hold them accountable for their actions. Ha 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 ha. U.S. presidents are not accountable for their actions. They're permitted to commit war crimes and crimes against humanity. And as Noam Chomsky put it, if the Nuremberg laws were applied, every post-war American president would be hung. I don't agree with Chomsky on everything, but I think he's right about that. Waterboarding is unquestionably torture, and it is against the law, even in our country. In fact, back in 1983, there was a Texas sheriff named James Parker who, along with 3 of his deputies, waterboarded someone in their custody in an attempt to extract a confession from him. They all did 4 years in prison for waterboarding this guy. And George Bush retired with a couple $100,000 a year. None of the people who implemented the torture program have been held accountable. None of the people who signed off on it have been held accountable. In fact, when George Tenet asked Bush if he could torture KSM, Bush said, "Oh yeah, go ahead and do it. I like it." He was all down for it. There's not a question here. Everyone knows the president is guilty of war crimes and crimes against humanity, and no one has tried to hold him accountable. And Obama's actions by turning his head when he had the opportunity to hold him accountable facilitated it. You either hold criminals accountable or the crimes continue. Trump came to office. Who did he want for his director of the Central Intelligence Agency? Gina Haspel, the one who implemented the torture programs in Iraq, or supervised them, oversaw them, whatever. Semantics is always a bitch. If we want the moral high ground to tell people like Vladimir Putin that what he's doing is wrong, then we have to do what is right. And protecting war criminals ain't right. And there is no statute of limitations on torture and murder. And that's exactly what the Bush administration is guilty of. And a number of other CIA and private contractors. These people need to be brought to justice. And until the United States does it, these crimes are going to continue. Sensory deprivation in the form of solitary confinement is a rampant practice across the United States. It also drives people insane. Making people crazy is a business, and it's a business the United States has been in for a long fucking time. It's time to change that. You know, if we want the moral high ground, we have to act moral. Anyway, work for peace, people. Aloha.